Welcome back to Black Hat, everybody. I haven't been here for a few years, so it's exciting to be back after the pandemic and see all these folks around. And my name is Steve Kofsky. I'm the editorial director for BlackBerry, and I have a special guest with us today. And I would like you to introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Christine Gadsby. I'm the Vice President of Product Security here at BlackBerry. It is my pleasure to have the responsibility to make sure that the products we sell, that they not only do the things that they do for our customers, but they remain secure in their environment. It's a really hot topic right now.
So that's an important job that she's got, and maybe the only person in this entire booth, maybe this entire convention center who's not trying to sell you anything.
Absolutely.
Just trying to make sure that the stuff that we sell you works. And so we're very lucky to have somebody of this caliber at BlackBerry. Tell us a little bit more detail about your job, what you do.
Yeah, it's a really wide scoped role. So, we spend a lot of time, effort, and money into developing these amazing products that do the great security things that they do, but it's really important to our customers, whether they're the highly regulated customers that have deep security concerns, or CISOs of banks, or government personnel, or just small and medium-sized businesses that our products don't actually add to their security worries when they use them. And so that can be everything from does our software have the appropriate level of security testing before it's released to the market? Are we watching it for vulnerabilities in the market every day? Because it's a daily thing, it's not a static thing. Vulnerabilities pop up every minute. So are we watching that? Are we fixing those? Are we telling our customers about the efforts that we're going to make sure their investment in our products is sound? And it goes all the way through to communications, to how as a company do we take that seriously, to making sure that we meet certifications for governments and make sure that we understand them. Do we understand our open source footprint and the open source software that we're using in our products? So it's very, very wide, and it takes an army of people to do that.
And it's a super important function within BlackBerry, because if there's one thing about BlackBerry, people don't even maybe know exactly what we do anymore, but they trust what we do.
Absolutely.
And it goes back to the BlackBerry phones, frankly, which you could drop off a building and still make a call out of. People know that BlackBerry does, as an English customer once told me, what it says on the tin.
Yes.
And so whenever there is a global threat, emergency of any kind, if there's a call, Christine is on it, and she's there on your behalf as a customer. So you should take a lot of solace in that.
Thank you.
How does what you do within BlackBerry, how does it guide what other security professionals should be doing in the industry?
Yeah, and it's really our heritage as a company. We've been thinking about how to not only develop products that do great security things that are secure since the beginning of the company's availability to customers at all. And so it really is important to take that into account when you're developing a piece of software and you're releasing it to a customer, and that customer is buying it and they're putting it into their own network. That comes with a responsibility, and nobody knows that better than BlackBerry. It is our heritage since I've been here since the handset days. Of when we developed software for handsets to get to market. It was the same concern we had then, and our customers have always held us accountable. Back to that day, our customers have held us accountable to make more secure software, to understand that they are trying to adopt things like Zero Trust, and that we sell them impacts those decisions. So that is the heritage, and we've been doing it longer than anybody, as far as I know, and it is important. And so other software vendors and other companies need to understand that pressure of the supply chain has become reality. We're sort of fast forward to where we started, and now now it is reality to what we always knew would be.
Okay, I think you said the magic words, which are supply chain. And this is something that I didn't think about a lot personally, even 2 years ago, before SolarWinds. As a supply chain threats, it seemed kind of theoretical. It had happened, but not on that scale. I think everybody got a wake-up call about how important the supply chain of software is Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important to take a step back and think about the supply chain itself. When you think about larger supply chain, when you think about software, it's no different than the frying pan that you're using on your stove to cook eggs, right? That frying pan has a supply chain, and there is security built into every step of that supply chain to make sure that that pan you're using is safe. Why would software be any different? It shouldn't be. It's running our critical infrastructure, right? And so you really do have to kind of think about that and go, wow, software running our critical infrastructure in our country should be safe, right? So we do really need those stepping stones of maturity to make sure that in every place we develop software and we allow it to run, how secure actually is that, right? And it is I think the last couple of years, we've really talked about it a lot more because we're seeing a lot of governments jump on board and say, well, hold on, things like SolarWinds was a big wake-up call in what the attack surface looks like. Attackers are going to take advantage of that because they can, right? That's the new thing. So they're going to get smarter, and we have to be smarter with them. So it's absolutely kind of a new narrative, but it's very important.
I'm kind of comfortable thinking about the supply chain for a frying pan. That sounds like something I can get my head around. The supply chain for software, though, is infinitely more complex because it's made of components that could come from many, many sources. And the government regulators are now going to hold us accountable for knowing where every line of code came from that passes through our hands. That's a big mountain to climb, it seems.
It is, but it's wise. We should know, right? Yeah. I mean, we should know the telemetry, and that's hard. It is difficult, and it's difficult for any software company. But for everything you buy, I think of it like the ingredients on a food label. If you go, and I've done this exercise actually recently, you go into your pantry or whatever, and I have a granola bar. If you were actually to read those ingredients, that says healthy on the package, and it says, software is no different. Security's on the label, it does all these secure things. So what's actually in it is important. And that's really what's coming to market now is that the effort it's going to take companies to be transparent. It's no small task. And thankful for BlackBerry, we've been doing it since we started. It's always been really important to us because it's really important. But I think now the industry is more coming to us and really understanding that ingredients label all the way down to that supplier level is really what you're selling. It's a box of things that work together, and the box of things has to be secured. And so for a company like BlackBerry with lots of software in market, the fact that we take it seriously and the fact that we do it really well is it's amazing.
It is amazing how we do it. And would you talk a little bit about that? Because I think there are very few companies, maybe some other vendors here, one hopes they're doing this level of rigor, but talk a little bit about the internal process of BlackBerry and how this extrapolates into what an end user, a consumer, business consumer might want to do in their own organizations.
Yeah, and that's a great question. So first, it boils down to telemetry. Again, you really do have to know the components that are making up the products that you sell. The second thing, BlackBerry invested very, very, very early on in developing some of our own internal capabilities. So we actually have an engine that categorizes binaries, which is kind of a new thing. And as a customer of BlackBerry, you get this, which is awesome. We take every single binary that is in market and in any given day, we have hundreds of binaries in market across all of our products. So we categorize those binaries and we're watching them all, every day, several times a day for any new vulnerabilities that come in. So for example, something like Log4j.
Yep.
That happened, we knew within, a small amount of time, minutes, not hours, where every single piece of software inside our binaries was impacted. So we were able to react quickly, we were able to manage it quickly, to the point where some of our top tier customers actually reached back out to us and said, okay, my other vendors haven't even answered my question, are they impacted? How are you guys already done? How did you guys already figure it out and you're already working on fixes? So it's that level of investment that, software vendors, not every software vendor has that. But as a customer of BlackBerry, you're getting that because we've just always done it. It's just where we're at. So it's a good thing. So
for the folks that are maybe listening to us here, thank you for taking the time to do that. And for the folks that we hope will listen to us and podcast downstream, what's the message for them? What can be their takeaway today? Something they can do to start them on this path?
Yeah, and that's also a good question. if you look back to like 2018 at this very conference was the first time BlackBerry spoke publicly about we're going to get exactly where we are right now. We did a talk at this very conference about the software supply chain and how if you didn't start paying attention to your telemetry and what you were selling, governments were going to step up and regulate it, and here we are. And so I think there was a lot of predictive stuff that if you just kind of read through the tea leaves of security and where companies are going to be headed, you're going to be here. That's my first message is if you're not paying attention, you need to pay attention, because the biggest, I think, stick and dangling carrot, I guess, if you will, that these regulating bodies can have is procurement. And so they're gating procurement. They're saying and putting a line in the sand that's saying we're no longer going to buy software products, no matter how good they seem, that don't take security seriously. And so for customers or companies, listening to this, my advice to everybody that I've talked to has always been, if you're doing nothing, now is the time to do something. Whether that's you're having, harder conversations with executives and saying, what are we doing at the product leadership level, or even internally, if you're consuming software, which everybody is, how are you holding your vendors accountable? It's not enough to ask them for patches anymore. And that's kind of like the old mentality of like, hey, what's your patching level? That's not enough, right? You got to dig in deeper and hold everybody accountable, like the government is holding us accountable. And so there really is a supply chain, and that's where I say, the reality of the supply chain is that's going to get very deep for security very fast. So if you're not on the train, you got to get on the train quickly, and you've got to really know what's in your product. That's where it all starts. You got to know it. You got to be able to categorize those binaries. You got to be able to know what your company is consuming from other vendors and what you're selling, because those all have attack surface. And if you're not putting them together to get kind of that holistic picture, then you're missing a bunch. You're just missing out.
Okay. So it's not enough to just have Patch Tuesdays anymore?
No.
And
although that's valuable.
This is going to be bad news for at least one vendor.
Yeah, it's very valuable,
yes.
But that's not enough.
Yes. Now, because you were at the forefront 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago talking about this, and your crystal ball is therefore proven, what are we going to be? What's going to be our reality next year in the next, short term that you're already seeing right now?
I really feel like the government efforts that are happening right now to sort of shore up the security watermarks is what I call it. The minimum level of security things that should be happening will be fully adopted by highly regulated industries. So banking and medical, whatever the highly regulated, security conscious customers are, I believe that watermark will start to steady out, and it will just become commonplace for these security activities to have to take place again at procurement. There's not going to be any more excuses anymore, and it's going to be, companies and customers alike using what they have, which is their dollars, to force the function for companies to pay attention to what they're selling. Money is very, 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 as we know, very powerful. And when you start putting a stake in the ground and saying, I'm not going to buy your stuff, then companies change their behavior. And that's why I believe in a year, we will absolutely be at the procurement gate. And companies will start choosing companies that make secure software, not just that their companies do great security things, but what's behind the front door. What security practices are you doing? Because the other thing is, those companies know it's less costly maintenance for them once they buy the product. That's where I really think the narrative is going to start heading, is security maintenance is going to get cheaper when you buy from a company like BlackBerry who's thinking before, thinking on their behalf.
Yes, and within maintenance, perhaps you're not adding costs for having been hacked or, right. Important stuff. Christine, thank you so much for spending time with us here today and talking about this really important issue. I learned a lot. I'm sure whoever's listening to this is learning a lot as well. So thanks very much.
You're welcome.